I didn't unmute myself. Let's roll that back a little bit, everybody. I've had better days too. Welcome to the advice stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. We got a weird situation today. I think I fixed it. I hope I fixed it. We've got a weird show today because it's just me. We had a guest, and they can't make it, and Oldman's not able to make it tonight either. So it's just me. But I'm enough. I'm enough for everyone, to coin a popular phrase these days. So it's just going to be me. We got some real good questions that have come in. It's been a couple weeks since we've done this show, so we've got lots of good things to talk about. We're live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and JeremyInternational.com today. And if you would like to, uh, if you would like to seek advice from your friend Jeremy International, then you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com and leave a question there. And I will read it out loud anonymously, and we can discuss as a community. Just getting a message from Oldman. Hey, Oldman, I'm up and running. I got this one under control. Haven't done a show on my own in a little while, and I kind of want to kick it old school style. So I think I'm gonna roll with it. I got a couple of ideas of things I want to talk about, but we'll have Oldman back on the show next time. My trusty sidekick, your friend and mine, Oldman, will join us next time. But I'm kind of feeling like doing this solo these days, if that's cool. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the world these days. It's important to look out for yourself, not to sound like a religious person, because I'm not, but the Talmud's got some good stuff in it, and it says if you're not there for you, then who is going to be? And if you're not there for other people, then what kind of person are you? I'm paraphrasing. So it's important to take care of yourself just as it is important to take care of other people. And I know that's a hard line to walk and work. But yeah, so we got a show. We got a show tonight. I think it's the night before Halloween, and we've been talking about scary movies all month. And so I was thinking that I would just kind of improvise a list of my favorite horror movies, and we can discuss those if you'd like. If you have a list of your own, feel free to throw them into the chat. I suspect it'll be a light attendance. Let's go have a look. We got a few folks over on Twitch. We got no one as usual on Facebook. Why do I even do Facebook? Is anyone on Facebook now? Facebook's a dead zone. And a few people over on the YouTubes. Hey YouTubes, hey Twitch. If you're haven't seen the show before, if you're joining us, feel free to throw in a hi in the chat. Hey Jugsy, I see Jugsy's here. Jugsy's been a regular contributor for a little while now. So why don't we start with a question that I'm going to pull up from my phone, and let's start with the question that came in last week, because I think this is a good one, and I think it requires a little bit of a discussion. I'm bringing it up right here. So here we go. I'm going to read a question, and the small group of people that are here tonight, we can have a conversation about it. Here's the question. My fiance, male 28, and I, female 29, have been together for over 8 years, and we've had our ups and downs. Very recently, he's approached me and said he's found religion in the form of Islam. For the entirety of our relationship, I've been under the impression that he's been agnostic like I am. This has really taken me by surprise, and I'm afraid that I'm either going to hurt him or disappoint him because of my apprehension due to me not fully understanding his newfound religion. When I expressed my concern, he immediately said he would reconsider, but I don't want him to stop if this is what he wants to do. What can I do, and how can I be supportive of his transition when I'm this scared because I don't know how this is going to impact our future? I've started taking steps with trying to look for halal food products, but I don't know what else I can do at this point. Boy, letter writer, this is a tricky one for sure. I can say that I've been a third party to people that have gone through similar types of dramatic decisions inside their relationship, specifically people going through kind of unexpected religious commitments. Religion is something for the people that it's important to. It's really important to them. I think committed relationships, whether you're married or whether you're just really dedicated to sticking it out together, is really a commitment to do your best to change together. People change, that is inevitable that people change over time. So when you commit to being with someone for, forever or for a long period of time, you're committing to changing together in the ways that people change. And when people can't do that anymore, when someone changes in such a dramatic or profound way that the other person can't keep up with that anymore, is why one of the main reasons why relationships, and especially long-term relationships, committing to a religion is a big deal, especially with what do they call them, like the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, because those are religions specifically that exclude other religions. I grew up in one of those religions very much, so I understand that it's they're exclusive religions. So not participating, being committed to someone that's not participating with that is hard. I would say, if you're looking for advice, that I would do my best to find out what has been the process, what has gotten your fiance to become so committed to this religion, and see if there's anything in there that appeals to you. See if this is a change you can do together or not, and really give it some open thought, but be serious about it. The worst thing you can do is to insincerely commit to a religion that's disrespectful to everybody and is going to cause misery and uncertainty for everybody. So do some research. Talk to a leader in this religious community, maybe even the same person or people that he's been talking to, and see if this is something that appeals to you. He appeals to you, this person, you're committed to marrying him. So maybe there's something in there. Maybe this is a way you can change together. If it's not, then it ain't gonna happen. This is gonna have to end, and he deserves to have someone that can go on this journey with him, and you deserve to not be feel like you're forced or obligated to go through a spiritual journey that you're not prepared to do. This is the reason people don't. This is one of the, maybe not specifically religion, but this kind of change is a reason people end relationships all the time. And I think it's a good reason to end a relationship if someone changes in a way that you're not able to change. If you've experienced anything like that, I had a friend years ago I drifted apart from, who got married, and then a few years later converted to Orthodox Judaism. This guy wasn't raised Jewish. He wasn't any of the typical Jewish ethnicities. He didn't have any Judaism in his background or his lineage, but something about the religion appealed to him at that particular point in his life, and really committed to it. And his partner couldn't keep up, wasn't interested, wasn't able to sincerely join him on that journey, and their marriage had to end because she couldn't go forward with him on that journey. And that happens. I think it takes a lot of maturity to be able to understand that. It's a hard decision to make, but those are real reasons to not pursue a relationship. It's sad when that happens. Relationships don't work out for lots of reasons, and almost all of them are sad. But maybe there's something you can find in his spiritual commitment that inspires you to make a similar commitment. If there's not, you owe it to both of you to move on to something else. I hope that's helpful. I know it's a hard situation to be in, but yeah, people change, and if they're changing in a way that you can't match, then it ain't gonna happen. Boy, anybody got Halloween plans for tomorrow? We're taking our kid out trick or treating for the first time. Never taken our kid out trick or treating before. So that'll be fun. I'm excited about that. Anybody else? Anybody else got Halloween plans? Anybody has like a traditional movie they watch every Halloween? I for years, I haven't in a while. For a long time, my Halloween tradition was to watch Night of the Demons, which is a really dumb, really silly, not really scary horror movie. I want to say like 88, 89 maybe. If you haven't seen Night of the Demons, it's dumb. It's dumb fun. Let's switch over. Hang on just a second here. I gotta do a little bit of maintenance. There we go. Let's switch over like this, and let's add a couple of movies into my improvised movie list. Oh, Jugsy says, I'm just being a grumpy old man this Halloween and stressing about all the fake webs and plastic rubbish already blowing all over the neighborhood streets. That definitely sounds like something a grumpy old man would be concerned about. But after that, I'll watch Jason 10. I don't think I've seen. Is that the one where he's in space, Jugsy? When Jason go to space at some point? I don't think I've seen that one before. I know there's a one where Jason goes to space. The original Friday the 13th, though, is a classic. I hadn't seen that in a while. It's a movie I should watch again. A lot of people don't realize. Yeah, I thought that was a space one. I haven't seen it, or if I have, I don't remember. A lot of people don't realize that original Friday the 13th, Jason's not the killer. He doesn't kill anyone. He's not in that movie. It's somebody else. I'm not going to tell you who, because it's a spoiler if you haven't seen it. Jugsy says, I only discovered it existed last week. Jugsy, did you discover that movie exists because of How Did This Get Made? I think they talked about it on How Did This Get Made a couple weeks ago. How Did This Get Made is always a fun time podcast for sure. So let's add in. This is no particular order, but these are my favorite horror movies, and I'm gonna start. We've talked about this before, probably. I'm gonna start with one that we've talked about on the show before, and it's not The Things. Silly, I'm silly, but that's The Thing from 1982. John Carpenter is classic. That's maybe not my favorite horror movie. I think it's just my favorite movie. Let's hang on a second, everybody. I'm gonna take a quick pause. I'm sorry, things are changing, and let's see if we can get Oldman to join us. So give me just a minute. We're gonna go to the test screen here, and I'll be right Okay, I'm back, everybody. Oldman might be swinging by here in just a minute. So we got some company coming along. Yeah, Jugsy. How Did This Get Made is a podcast with Paul Scheer and June Diane Raphael and Manzukis is on there, and they watch movies that aren't necessarily great. Although some of the movies they make fun of, I actually think are really good, and it's just a good time. And they did, I think, if they didn't do Jason 10, they talked about it. I don't remember. But we might be, we were going to be waiting out for Oldman here. Let's go back. I'm going to add in another one. Let's see. Another one of my favorites is, oh man, there's so many. Let's see. What about The Witch? That's not really how they spell it. They spell it like this. And I don't remember when that came out. Sometime. That looks dumb. I'm going to spell it the right way. Have you ever seen The Witch before, Jugsy, the only person contributing to the chat? That's a good one too. I'm not going to put in what year that is. I put 1982 for the thing because there's been other movies called The Thing that came out in different years, so it's easy to tell this one because it says 1982. But I also that's like a really really great weird eerie movie. It's got one of the best endings of a horror movie ever. That's a real good one. And then let's do. Here's another really good one. There's been a million versions of this movie, but the one from I have no idea what year, the 70s. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the 70s. It's got Donald Sutherland in it. Is real good. Hey, Oldman is here. Hey, Oldman, I'm
I
going to
should
bring
have
you
been
in just a second.
earlier. This is my fault.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, good. Hang on just a second. There we go. Hey, Oldman.
Hi there. I'm
How's
sorry
it
I was
going?
just jerking around earlier. I thought that things were. Oh, I got an echo here. Let's turn this off.
FredUndead says that we should spell the witch with two V's, so I'm going to go back and spell it. That doesn't look right to me, but I'm going to do what FredUndead says that I should do. Today is FredUndead's birthday, everybody, so say hi, happy birthday to FredUndead.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. What's new with you, Oldman? We haven't talked in a while. We're just kind of doing this live. How's it going?
Things are going all right, I would say. I went to a Halloween party this weekend with some new college people.
Gotcha.
My
People
alma
from the
mater.
new college, not new to college people.
No, not new to college people.
Okay.
Although there were a lot more young people there than I thought there were going to be.
I
There
was gonna
weren't that
say
many
it'd
new
be a
college
little weird
people.
at your age to go to a party
I know. I
full of
didn't go
people.
alone. I went with one of my exes,
Okay.
who's a friend now.
Good.
It's a bit of a situation in itself. But anyway, I don't want to. I don't want to start off with that. Anyway,
Did you, Oldman? Were you able to hear the question that I read out before? It was a good one.
I might need a refresher.
Person wrote in saying that they're engaged, and their fiance, it was a woman writing in. Her fiance is a male style person, and he is converting to Islam, and she's not sure. She's agnostic, and she's not sure how to proceed because she's feeling a little overwhelmed and intimidated by this kind of transition. I answered it, I think, pretty extensively, but I'm curious if you have any hot takes on that.
I feel like people that are married to each other should be open with another about that kind of thing. And then if you're not, it's gonna lead to problems. But they need to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. My take was being in a long-term relationship with someone means that you commit to change together. And if she can find a way to navigate this change and maybe even meet him at some level in this transition he's making, then that's great. And if she can't do that in a sincere and educated way, then that's why relationships end a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, changing together is the dream, but it's not, unfortunately, always possible.
No. And that's why they should talk about it.
Man, we should talk
So
about
there
it.
we
Okay.
go. Another agreement.
Speaking of talking about it, let's do another one. I got a bunch. From my notes. Here we go. Okay, here's another relationship one that in some ways might be a little similar. Let's see what we want to say about this one.
Let's hear it.
My partner and I have been together for a year, and I love them so much. One thing that makes me very uncomfortable, though, is that they self diagnosed autistic when I am certain that they are not. I know that there are infinite biases and barriers in our medical system that make it difficult for people to get important diagnoses. And I know autism is a spectrum. I know that some autistic kids learn to mask, and I know that this is not my own lived experience. Although these things are true, and my partner has also never, all of these things are true. And my partner has also never done one single thing that makes me wonder if they might be right. It bothers me because I have several people in my life that I care about and a lot who are autistic, and I see how much it affects them every day. It seems incredibly disrespectful to co opt this to explain a completely neurotypical experience and behaviors. I wouldn't have an issue if they did have autism, but I'm just quite certain that they simply don't. Part of me wonders if I should just let it go, but also every time they bring it up, it makes me angry and uncomfortable. Yeah,
That's a complicated one.
it's so it's so complicated. The
I
first thing
guess.
I say,
Yeah. No, you go. You go.
this isn't an answer to the question, but the first thing I want to say, this is why everyone should always avoid self-diagnosing everything, because you know, as a person that has several lifetime diagnoses, a diagnosis becomes part of your identity for better or for worse. And making one up on your own without the guidance of a medical professional is dangerous, because then you start to think of it as being part of your identity, and it may or may not uh, be true. And then you do things like, get in trouble or hurt people that have been given a medical diagnosis of the same thing, I guess. Um, that's what I have to say. That's not really an answer so far. We'll get to an answer, but that's the first thing I want to say is people don't self-diagnose anything. I know that in a lot of ways the medical industry is corrupt, but there's lots of good people that work as doctors out there. And if you think you got a problem of any kind, go get it diagnosed professionally. Get someone to write something down officially for you. It's important to do.
Yeah, I think that could possibly resolve some of this. But on the other hand, it's possible that whether the diagnosis says it one way or another, the problem is not going to go away. It's just going to come up in some other form.
Yeah.
Especially if this is the kind of guy that, like, when he does something dumb, he says, "Oh, I'm so autistic," or something like that. It really depends on the scale of what she means by he's calling himself this.
Or like when people
Is he
say
just
that
doing
they're
it in like that
OCD.
internet bro way or not? That's what I
Yeah,
want to know.
that's a good point. Is how much of an internet bro is this guy? Uh, it's like when people say that they have OCD because they like to have like a clean bathroom or something. Like
Right. It could be that. And that's
it's
what I want to know.
disrespectful to people that have
Yes,
real skills and have medical diagnosis. The
absolutely.
the person that wrote this is asking us a legitimate question though about how to handle this, and it's going to be really difficult uh, to say I need you to go get a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to talk to a specialist and get and have them, and you know, and if he goes to a if they go to a doctor and the doctor's like, no, you're not autistic, they're not going to agree with that because they've already made it part of who they are.
Yeah, exactly. Like the diagnosis is important, and for some people, it might settle the question. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of people, it might settle the question if they were willing to spend the money to do that. And I feel like if it's going to be this a bunch of an issue in their marriage, it's probably worth spending a few $100s to get to go to an appointment or two.
yeah,
Uh, as hard as that may sound, like, and I know that some people can't, and like, absolutely, like, I think saying I have a suspicion that I have this is
yeah,
one thing,
yeah,
and using it to excuse behavior without a diagnosis, even and especially if they're like doing it in the bro way that I mentioned earlier, then yes, that would definitely be a simpler question. But let's take it at face value.
yeah. And you know, and maybe the angle that the letter writer can take in this situation is to say, you know, if you have a medical doctor give you a diagnosis, then you can do things like ask for special accommodations at work, or you know, whatever. Like there's a if you if and you know, this is advice I'd give to anybody, once again, as a person that has several ongoing chronic and likely to be lifetime uh, you know, medical diagnoses is if you you know, there's all kinds of accommodations you might be able to get from your work or from school or whatever if you have an actual doctor on your side. Once again, not all doctors are going to be on your side, but finding one that is really important. And you know, this is America, and we punish people for wanting to go to the doctor and for taking care of themselves. But if you're at all able to manage the process of looking for a doctor that respects you and you trust, then please do that because you need it. Everybody does. Yeah. Uh, and just please don't self diagnose. If you have a suspicion, go to a doctor and tell them, hey, I've been reading about it and I think this might be going on, but I need you to help me figure that out for sure. Is important. Don't, with anything, don't diagnose yourself. It's just, it's gonna cause more grief uh, than anything else.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that though is that like when you're self-diagnosing, what you're saying is, well, you're using the language of the medical profession itself.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, if you're somebody who rejects the entire establishment of, you know, the medical industry, you ask the question, why am I using their terminology? Because that's what they came up with to diagnose me in the first place. So there's a
Yeah,
little bit of like a contradiction there.
yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, uh, yeah, that I didn't think about it in that context, but yeah, if you're, you know, like, or maybe what I mean, I think the thing also to keep in mind is that autism is a spectrum. It's my understanding, at least from what I've read about it, which isn't um, comprehensive, but I think is a decent amount, is that it's less of like a disorder as it is like a collection of um, different ways of perceiving the world and interpersonal relationships. So like maybe getting him to commit to, instead of saying I'm autistic, getting to say this is my struggle, this is my journey, this is the way that I perceive the world around me, and this is what it means for the people that live in that world, and being able
Yeah.
to focus on what their experience is, less than coming up with a kind of a catch-all. And you know, and I think few people would disagree, a kind of vague term that can describe all kinds of stuff and all kinds of people with all kinds of different abilities or disabilities. So I think in this case, maybe, kind of pushing this person to commit to defining what their struggle is in a way that's more specific than saying autistic.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
one thing if they weren't married, if they were just like friends or strangers or whatever. That's one thing. But if you're married and you have a problem like this, naming the condition is not a conversation ender. Obviously,
yeah.
like you need to talk about it at a deeper level.
What does it actually mean when you say
Hmm.
autistic? Like one of the things that I regularly do, and this is kind of indicative of when I'm getting close to someone like in my friend circle, is I can say the broad terms of what my various diagnoses are, but what it actually means in a real way for me and the people that I'm close to is a different thing altogether. And I kind of throw out the broad terms pretty early on when I'm getting to know people, but it's not until I feel really close to someone that I'm going to say this is what it actually means
Hmm.
to be me. This is how I actually feel, and these are the specific ways that sometimes it's difficult for me to navigate through the world. Yeah, that's a doozy. But I once again, everybody out in the world, don't self-diagnose. It's not a good thing for anyone. No one benefits from that. If you're gonna,
I see that you have a diagnosis for horror right here, Jeremy. So what about that?
yeah, let's diagnose some horror. So I don't know. I figured I needed something to do today because we had a guest, but they couldn't make it, which is fine. So I figured I would just kind of improvise a list of my favorite horror movies. Here's another one, and this is from the 30s. I probably like 34, 35. I'm guessing this is the original one with Boris Karloff, The Mummy. This movie, maybe isn't necessarily scary by our standards, but there are parts of it that are. But it's just really beautifully shot. It's just a beautiful to watch movie, and there's unexpected stuff in it that I watched it because it's a classic, and I felt like I should, but I found myself being into it a lot more.
What list do you use, Jeremy, to determine what you're going to watch next?
Uh, I don't, I what I I mean I don't think I don't watch a lot of movies necessarily, and I don't know if I'm certainly not like schooled or like educated in movies or film. So when like I'm like, oh, I have a night and I'm gonna watch a movie tonight, I usually just have to think for a little bit about like what's the movie I hear people talk about that I've never seen that I want to, and that's how I usually decide. It's a good question though. How does anyone decide what to watch in 2023 when literally all of human creative endeavors is usually just a couple clicks away from us? How does anyone decide? But it's
Well, I only ask because I've been watching the AFI list, but I
Oh,
have
that's
not seen a
good.
horror movie in that list yet. The top 100.
I think AFI has a horror movie list, if I remember.
Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think which would be fun. Let's see if we can find that list, and we can talk about what movies on it we've seen.
Or deserve to be off the list.
Yeah, AFI horror movies. 100 years, 100 thrills. Oh
100
yeah,
years,
here we go.
100 thrills.
100 thrills. All right, you ready?
Okay.
Hold on. Ooh, there's.
I got it up on my other screen here. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Number one is the original Psycho from 1960. You ever see that?
I did. It was underwhelming. Maybe I just didn't pay enough attention, though. I mean, I wasn't at a stage in my life where I could have appreciated it. Let's put it that way.
I get it. I've seen it, and like, it's a hard movie to pick apart because it's not scary in the way that I would say that like a horror movie is scary. Uh, I don't. I mean, it's disturbing. It's upsetting. I think like a lot of Hitchcock stuff is that it is all of those things, and it's also beautifully shot and exciting to watch. And it's
So we're
paced
striking it off
well.
the list because it's not a horror movie, is what you're saying.
I mean, if we're gonna put, I don't know what is
Psycho off the list.
yeah, what
Doesn't
is
deserve
in
it.
a horror movie? I don't know if it would. I mean, if I was making a list of 100 movies, it would be in there. If I was making a
Yeah,
list of
I
10,
guess
it
so.
probably wouldn't. How's that?
That's nicer than what I'm doing, but I'm saying it's off the list for my list,
Okay,
my personal list.
if we're doing 100 movies like AFI did, it's on my list. It's not at the top,
Okay,
for sure. It's
fair.
not number one, but it's probably maybe in like the 30s somewhere.
I'm
Uh,
gonna be going up to people saying like I'm a horror expert, and they're gonna ask me if I've seen Psycho, and I'm gonna say no, that's not a horror movie. What are you talking about? I've never seen that. What are you talking about?
Jugsy says, oh, going back a little bit, FredUndead, going back to talking about not self-diagnosing. FredUndead says it's okay to have an initial suspicion if it takes you to get an actual diagnosis. Agree with that, FredUndead. Sorry, everyone, I got distracted from the chat for a little bit. Jugsy says you might spend all that time and money for a psychiatrist to say you're just a bit odd. That's true. You could, but the good news then is that you're not autistic. You're just a bit odd. Number two in AFI's list is Jaws. What do you think about that, Oldman?
I don't know if that's a horror movie either. Is it?
I
I
think it is.
guess.
I call Jaws a horror movie solidly.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it on the list as a horror movie. In terms of like my ranking of horror movies, not the most horrific, but also probably because it was legendary.
Yeah.
That's probably why I didn't find it horrific.
Um, yeah, I agree with that too. FredUndead says, oh, we're still talking about psychological diagnosis, or
Right.
the psychiatrist could misdiagnose you and put you on the wrong meds. That's always a risk too, but that's why it's
It's happened
important
to
to
me before,
shop
for
around.
sure.
I understand that. Has happened to me before too. Uh, you gotta shop around, and if get it. Second opinions are valuable. Doctors are people, just like all of us are. They can make mistakes. Okay, going back to the AFI's 100 list, number three is unambiguously a horror movie. If you
Yes,
say, Oldman, that
I
this
won't say
isn't a
that.
horror movie, you can get the F out of here. Is The Exorcist? Have you seen that one recently? I've
Yeah.
seen it not
I
too long.
haven't seen it recently, but I liked it when I saw it, and I did find it horrific and
A,
disturbing,
a few
as a horror
years
movie should
ago,
be.
they did a new remaster or like a director's cut of it, and I saw it in the movie theater. And
Hmm.
I don't believe in demons or exorcists or priests or anything, but man, that movie messed me up. It's real scary.
Where
Uh,
did you see it? Probably at the AFI in Silver Spring, right?
I don't remember. Probably it was more than a few years ago. But yeah, that movie. I heard that because they made a whole bunch of sequels. I heard that The Exorcist Part 3 is also really good. Part 2 apparently isn't, but 3 is supposed to be good. I've never seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at this, I can tell you, going down the list, that a lot of these movies aren't horror movies. I'm not sure why it just says heart pounding American movies. Hold on, can we go? Do they have an actual
King
horror
Kong?
movie
That's
list?
not a horror movie.
Yeah,
Come
because
on, King
like Raiders of the Lost Ark is on there.
Yeah, this is a thrill list. It's not a horror list. So it's like adventure and horror.
Yeah.
I
Well, let's
guess.
keep going through it anyways. Um. What was next after The Exorcist? Number 4 is North by Northwest. Another Hitchcock movie. Never seen it.
Never seen it.
Yeah. So we'll
Not
just
have,
skip that
doesn't have
one.
enough. Yeah, skip that one.
Number 5, Silence of the Lambs. That's a scary movie.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's more of a creepy movie than a scary movie.
I don't know. I think that scene at the end where she's in the dark and does she have night vision goggles or something and she's looking for the killer? That movie is legitimately scary. I remember when that was in the movie theater. My sister, who's a bit older than me, saw it in the movie theater and couldn't sleep for like a week afterwards
Okay.
because she was so scared by it. Number 6 is Alien, legitimately a horror movie, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely a horror movie.
Yeah. Also, I would put that into maybe my top 10, top 15.
Same here.
Not just
Top
horror
10,
movies,
top
but just
15, top 20,
movies.
somewhere near the top.
Yeah. Even if it wasn't just horror movies, just movies in general.
Yeah.
Alien. Wow, because it's AFI, so they all got to be pretentious here because there's a lot of Hitchcock in this list.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 is The Birds. Have you seen The
Yeah,
Birds?
I
I've
guess
seen.
I saw that when I was young. I don't really remember it.
I think The Birds was probably scary for people that saw it in 1963. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think what's really cool about that movie is how little they give you. There's no explanation for why uh, the birds are birding around. It's just a thing that happens and then it stops. And I think that's the thing that's coolest to me about that movie is how little Hitchcock gives you. Jugsy
Mm-hmm.
says that Alien One is definitely a horror movie. The rest of the Alien movies aren't. Alien and its associated universe is my favorite media of all time. Oh, that's cool, Jugsy. What do you think, Jugsy, of the newer ones? What is it, Alien? Uh,
Prometheus is good, straight up good. I liked Prometheus. It was a good alien movie.
um,
But the rest of them, personally, I'm just talking about my opinion here. I want to hear Jugsy's as well.
yeah,
But
yeah.
personally, the rest of them, Alien 3 was good, I guess.
What was the one
Aliens was good.
after Prometheus?
There was one after Prometheus, but I haven't seen it. Let's
I
do the
haven't
research.
seen that one. I thought Prometheus was. I feel like Prometheus is like a reverse Covenant. Thank you. Jugsy says Covenant.
Covenant, yeah, that's the one.
I like Prometheus for sure. I haven't seen Covenant. I like Prometheus. What I thought was Prometheus is kind of like a reverse 2001 in the same way like we were just talking about the birds. At 2001 doesn't give you anything. You don't know. You can watch that whole movie 3 times in a row and still not be 100% sure about what is actual like the series of events of the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Prometheus is kind of like that too. It's unclear what actually is going on most of the movie, but it's not boring and it's not frustrating to watch it. You're still engaged throughout the whole time, which I think is quite a feat to do. Ridley Scott did that one, right? Didn't Ridley Scott do Prometheus?
So,
Um,
Star Wars cheesy and not 80s sci-fi, which is a different kind of cheesy, is what Jugsy says.
yeah,
I think I would agree with that.
I really like the second Alien movie, Aliens. James Cameron did that one. I love that movie. I agree that that's not a horror movie. That's more of like a sci-fi,
Yeah.
like army movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, really like that movie a lot. Alien 3 uh, feels like it's a little too like 1990s music video for me. It's just such a specific time and style that I feel like I don't know if it's aged really well. What's your over under, Jugsy, on Alien 3? I would like to know. And the one after that is Resurrection. That's the one Winona Ryder's in, right?
Man, I did not see most of these. I only saw the first three and then Prometheus.
There's
I
a
got
lot
some
of
stuff
you.
to catch up
Um, Jugsy says Alien versus Predator is another one I think is really fun and a great
Yeah.
set piece. I think I saw the first Alien versus Predator. You want to hear something that's wild though? Is now Disney owns all of the Alien and Predator franchise, which is humorous to me. I didn't realize that until the other day. I read a lot of Marvel comics. I subscribe to like Marvel's like streaming service for comics. It's called Marvel Unlimited, and Disney owns Marvel too. And I opened up the app, and there's a whole bunch of Alien comics in there now that Marvel's putting out. I didn't read any of them yet, but I plan on it. Jugsy says Alien 3 is chaotic and 90s music video is spot on, but I love it for the rawness of the performances and the adherence to Alien style action. Wow, that's a good review, Jugsy.
Yes.
You just
Put that on
made
your
that
litter
up off.
box.
Jugsy write about movies professionally? That's well put together paragraph. Um, uh, I hate that they spoilers wiped out. Yeah, Newt because it would have been a great spin-off arc. That's I guess one of the things that bums me out about Alien 3 is in between Alien 2 and Alien 2 Aliens ends with, some characters that you're emotionally invested in. And then in between those two movies they just all die off camera, which is
Hmm.
it feels like that was just kind of a cop out
Yeah.
to get out of that. Yeah. Let's see. The next couple movies on the AFI list aren't, no one would say are horror movies. French Connection, which I've also seen and is a fine action movie, I guess. And then you got this is a controversial one, is Rosemary's Baby. I think we talked about this when Eve was on the show last time. And I also suspect that we would have talked about this quite a bit with our original guests for the night. Oh, hold on. Jugsy got auto modded here. Uh, Jugsy says, would watch 3 to 4 movies of Newt and Hicks running across the universe. Man, Twitch needs to slow their roll. Jugsy
Yeah.
got auto blocked for saying the word Hicks.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. I mean, there are people that are Hicks. It's not a nice thing to call people, but I wouldn't say that it's a blockable offense. Um, Come on, Twitch, get your shit together. Have you seen Rosemary's Baby, Oldman? We talked about that before.
No, I know what it's about, but I have not seen it.
That movie is wonderful and scary in a really, even though it deals with like a supernatural occurrence, I think that it's scary in a very real, especially for, when did that come out? 1968. Especially for that time period. Um, you should see it. It's unfortunate that the person that directed it is a very, very bad guy
Yeah.
all around. But I mean, being able to separate the art from the artist is a hard thing to do, and no one's ever should ever feel obligated to do that. But if you feel like you can, um, and you like scary movies that also kind of have a real profound social commentary, you should check out Rosemary's Baby. So number 10, once again, I thought this was a horror list. It's not, as Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I will say this about Raiders of the Lost Ark. The end of Raiders is fucked up. And I remember watching that as a kid and being very upset by the by the end of that movie. I would say the end of that movie definitely is a good 3 or 4 minutes of a horror movie. The rest of the movie isn't. Although anything with Nazis in it, I think, could be construed as a horror movie. But boy, the end, and I can't imagine anyone out there hasn't seen the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. But just in case you haven't, I'm not going to spoil this for anybody. Oh, hey, Alan. Alan's sending me a message on Facebook. Uh, Alan, if you wanted to check it out, you can go. My my YouTube channel is Jeremy International. You can also find me on Twitch at Jeremy International. You can even go to JeremyInternational.com and just watch the show right from there if you want to. I agree that Facebook isn't great for anything. But YouTube, Twitch, Jeremy International, one word, sound spelled just the way that it sounds. Thanks for watching in whatever way you can. Oh, and look, Alan made it all the way over to YouTube. Hey, Alan, thanks for joining us there. Appreciate it. Mike the Biggie says Raiders is the best of the three Indiana Jones movies. I generally agree with that, Mike the Biggie. I gotta say though, Temple of Doom's my favorite. I know Temple of Doom's a little problematic in 2023. I get that. Uh, Temple of Doom is a lot closer to a horror movie than any of the other Indiana Jones movies are, for sure. Because that movie's got some weird stuff going on. Uh, number 11 in AFI's 100 Years of Thrills is The Godfather. Oldman, is there any universe where someone could watch The Godfather and perceive it to be a horror movie? Is the question that I have.
I don't really think so, because I saw it recently and I don't see that. But I will say that it could make a good like a Halloween costume if you were to dress up as like a goon.
That's true. That's true. PG Doug says that Harrison Ford is the hottest in Temple of Doom. Yeah, I agree with that too. He definitely spends the most amount of time without a shirt on in that movie. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're really like bigoted against Italians, maybe The Godfather isn't a movie you could sit through. Um, Mike the Biggie says maybe if you're a mobster, it'd be scary. Yeah, I mean, they're doing pretty good at the end. The mafia is doing pretty good at the end of that movie. The Godfather is one of those movies that everybody says is really good, and I'm always have my shields up about movies like that, because especially like movie bros, when they really like latch onto a movie, I feel like it's usually overrated. But The Godfather is actually as good, I think.
It's good. I will say it's good. I
Yeah.
don't like mobster movies. I watched it. It's good.
Well,
I
in part
certainly
two,
would
part
not
two is the
take any
best.
lessons or style from it, but it's good.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Part two is I would say Godfather Part Two would be in my, I don't know, top 5 favorite movies I've ever seen though. Hey Jugsy, not a problem. Have a good one. Thanks for joining. And just as a reminder to everyone, every episode, more or less, of the advice stream will always be located at JeremyInternational.com. If you ever wanted to check up on older episodes there, please do. So let's go down the list. Number 12 is King Kong, which I believe this was, what year did King Kong come out? 1933. I think people were scared of that movie when it came out in 1933, probably.
Yeah, the Great Ape Terror of 1933.
People were terrified of giant apes attacking Art Deco skyscrapers.
Started locking their homes that year.
Yeah.
Because apes have hands.
Mike the Biggie says film bros are annoying, but they're most annoying when they're like when they like something good, and I like it for dumb reasons. Can you give me an example? I'd love an example of that, Mike the Biggie, please. An example of something.
My example would be Fight Club. I think that would be the classic one that so many bros misunderstand.
Yeah, I agree with that. And and like the trope of bros watching a movie about a very bad person doing very bad things and thinking that's my guy. I like that guy. Like when people get like that about like Scarface or Breaking Bad or Rick and Morty or whatever, that drives me crazy. But Mike the Biggie is saying bros like a movie because they think it's good, but Mike likes it for dumb reasons. Mike says King Kong came out the day Prohibition was lifted. I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So maybe the reason people were so into that movie is because they were wasted.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight, Jeremy.
Yeah,
and also Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Number 13 is Bonnie and Clyde, 1967. Did you have you seen not a horror movie unless I don't know, you're a young bank robber in love. Have you seen that version of Bonnie and Clyde before? It's real good.
I don't think so. I think I saw a different one.
Yeah. You should see it. It's violent and there's lots of people shooting, but I think it does a pretty good job of not glorifying the violence too much. Rear Window, another Hitchcock. Never seen it. Have you seen
Move
it?
on.
Move on.
Deliverance. That one is definitely a horror movie. That
Yeah,
one is scary.
and I gotta say, I saw that movie. I think I was a little too young uh, to have seen that movie when I saw it. Um, Deliverance has, for those of you that don't know, Deliverance has a pretty intense uh, rape scene, and it's difficult. I hope that it's difficult for anyone to watch. It should be, but especially being like a 13 or 14-year-old boy, which is probably how old I was when I saw that movie, was very upsetting. Going back to Mike the Biggie says, that they meant that the film bros like it for dumb reasons, like American Psycho or Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people though that would say, if you, I think Taxi Driver is also a very good movie. As long as, and Fight Club is too, as long as you are watching that movie understanding that there's not a hero in that movie. It's a movie about someone falling apart, not about a person that's doing anything that should be looked up to or emulated by anybody. It's unfortunate that lots of people watch those movies and that's the lesson they leave the movie with, is that guy's cool.
Yeah.
But there's no one cool in Fight Club. There's no one cool in Taxi Driver. There's no one cool in Breaking Bad. Uh, those movies are about people that are doing terrible things and bad things happen to them because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bad things happen to the people around them, at least, because of it. Mike the Biggie says Rear Window is great, but has the Hitchcock exposition dump at the end that takes away from everything. I been, Rear Window is one of those movies I've been wanting to see for a long time. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Let's find some other actual horror movies that are on this. Uh, Titanic is on here. Boy, this is not the one I should have gone with. If we get all the way down to number 29, we see The Shining,
Yes.
which is
I,
another.
I saw it in theaters at one point. Still very, very scary movie. I mean,
Yeah. Uh, the Shining is another one of those movies that film bros always say is great, and they're right. It is. It's a great movie. Soundtrack's amazing. It's shot beautifully.
mm-hmm,
Uh, it's a wonderful movie. I've heard really horrible things about the process of making it,
me
um,
too.
but and that's too bad. But did you see? Have you seen Doctor Sleep, Oldman?
Not yet.
Also, I would say much better than I would have guessed it is. Really good, and it revisits a lot of the kind of the themes and the visuals from the original, from The Shining. Also, the if anyone knows anything about The Shining, you probably heard this before. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I haven't read every one, but I've read almost all of his books, and The Shining is one of my favorites, and is very, very different than the Stanley Kubrick movie in a lot of big ways. Uh, Stanley Kubrick made a great movie, but he missed the mark about what is good about the book. And Stephen King, I think, was upset about how that movie turned out because it's so far from what he was trying to say in the book. But the Doctor Sleep does a good job of it's kind of a sequel to the book and less of a sequel to the movie, but it takes a lot of the visual language from the movie anyways,
Hmm.
which is cool. Let's see, what does Mike the Biggie say? Yeah, Mike must be looking at the list too because Titanic is on there. I guess Titanic is a horror movie if you are a like Edwardian millionaire.
Yeah.
A scary story.
Or maybe like if you're just somebody who's opposed to the class struggle, that could be a horrific manifestation of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I haven't seen Titanic since it was in the movie theater, I think. But like everyone in high school when that movie came out, I probably saw it in the movie theater 2 or 3 times.
You didn't see it on the two VHS collection that they
No,
sold
I
back
don't think I
then?
had the double VHS, but The Godfather was also on a double VHS.
All
Um,
right.
man, what a time to be alive. 2 tapes. Uh, um, yeah. Uh, Kubrick hated the book. Interesting, Mike says. Yeah, and I
Hmm.
know that Stephen King wasn't jazzed about the movie. Let's see what else on this list could be construed as a horror movie. Here's one that I think is arguably, possibly a horror movie, is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. What do you think about that? I think that movie's scary.
The second half, if I remember correctly, the first half is all build up. He does the mashed potatoes thing,
He does the
and
mashed
then the second half is where the ship comes and starts farting noises at them, right?
Yeah, there's a scene where the woman and the aliens come and get the little kid from the woman's house, and she's trying to like close all of the doors so they can't get in, and they keep opening again on their
Mhm.
own, and she has to reach into the chimney to close the flue, and there's a camera coming down the chimney, and it's right at her hand when she pulls it down. That seems terrifying. And I
Yeah,
would say, I think the idea for that movie is when the aliens appear at the end, and you see that they're there to be peaceful, but that's just as terrifying because they're aliens and they're very alien looking. And I don't, I mean, certainly it's scarier if the aliens land and start shooting people or whatever. But it's just as scary, I would say, if they show up and they're not just as scary, but only a little bit less scary if they show up and they're nice. And then you have to like go with them or learn to be with them or something because these aliens are so alien. Uh,
yeah.
the end of that movie is still that's man, I love that movie. The end of that movie is still very um, I don't know. I don't have a word for it. Is very jarring and very disturbing just because and just because they're friendly doesn't mean that we don't have to be terrified of them. What do you
I just
think of?
started reading the Uplift series by David Brin,
I don't know that one.
which is all about like exactly what you're talking about. Like the aliens show up and they're friendly, and it turns out that all intelligent life across the galaxy has been lifted from some non-sentient state from like a superior civilization that came there and brought them to like sentience.
Mm.
And so there's the humans are working on dolphins. They already did chimpanzees, and they're trying to exist in this much larger world, the galaxy. And there's all kinds of conventions they have to follow. It's interesting. I like it so far.
That does sound interesting. PG Doug says, doesn't Dreyfus go up with them? Why did he do that, deadbeat dad? Yeah, I ask
Oh, yeah.
that question all the time. Why did he go with them? He wanted to, or it kind of almost seems like they programmed him to want to go.
Mm.
Because he went to meet them very much against his will. He felt impelled to do so for mysterious reasons. So when you think about it that way, that's fucked up. They kind of forced him to go. I
Hmm.
would love to see a sequel. I'm just thinking about this now.
Oh, yeah.
Jump ahead 20 or 30 years and they come back. And what were they doing? Where did they go? What do they do now?
I hope they don't go with the most obvious title.
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
Yeah, please, no.
I used to know this, the different levels of close encounters. The third kind is definitely when you go up on their
Right.
hip. Is the fourth
Mhm.
kind when you fuck? Is it when you have sex with them? Is that the fourth kind?
Yeah. It's like getting the home run.
Yeah, it's like going all the way. Close encounters of the all the way. Fourth base. Okay, let's look at the list. We did The Shining. Deer Hunter is an upsetting movie, but I'm not sure anyone would call that a horror movie.
Mm.
We just did Close Encounters. Strangers on a Train, haven't seen it. Fugitive, I mean, no, The Fugitive isn't a horror movie. The Night of the Hunter, I haven't seen that.
Haven't seen it. Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
Uh,
Maybe.
I read this somewhere in you want to be upset about something with Jurassic Park. So, the movie very much clearly implies that Laura Dern and Sam Neill's character are together. Laura Dern
Mhm.
was like 22 when they made that movie, and Sam Neill was like 40 something. So, and also they're both like in professionals in the paleontology field. So you
Mm.
can take with that what you want.
Well, I'm still more upset that they misspelled Stegosaurus on the beaker or whatever.
I never
They
know.
misspelled another dinosaur's name too on the set design. That's the thing I'm most upset
I didn't
about.
notice. I never noticed that. If we jump ahead, the next movie that I think could potentially be a horror movie is The Terminator. What do you think about that, Oldman? Is Terminator a horror movie?
No, I don't think so. It's an action movie or an adventure movie. It's not a horror movie. Because if we reduce any kind of movie that has something that could possibly be horrific or has action scenes where people get killed to a horror movie, then everything's a horror movie,
Yeah, but
except like
I
DreamWorks.
I agree with that, and we got to be careful where we draw the line. Here's what I'll say about The Terminator, though. To me, the scariest stories, the scariest scenarios are when the main character makes a series of decisions that anybody would make, but it gets them into this horrific, dangerous, or deadly situation. And the Terminator is so much that Sarah Connor didn't do anything wrong. She was just living her life. She has no idea what her future has in store for her. And suddenly she's in this life and death struggle against this unstoppable, horrific monster. And she didn't do anything wrong. She was just living her life. And to me, like this is one of the reasons why in the various movie versions of this, we can debate. But Pet Cemetery to me is one of Stephen King's scariest books because the main character in that makes a series of decisions that I think almost anyone could make. Like there's no choice he makes in that story that is unacceptable or out of nowhere or makes him a bad person. And that story ends and he's in this unimaginably horrific, terrifying situation. And didn't he didn't do anything that most people wouldn't have done in his same place. And that to
I
me
will
is
say though that burying your pet at a pet cemetery is not usually a very practical option, and you should probably dispose of your pet in some other way.
yeah, but he didn't know that they were going to come back out of the pet cemetery. He didn't know that the cat was going to come out all wrong.
That's true. I'm just saying he made a mistake. That's all.
Sure, but he made a mistake that so many people
Understandable.
could make. He was just trying to hang on to his
Right.
life in some way.
You
And
know what? I bet Pet Cemeteries kind of decreased in popularity after that movie was released.
yeah, I think they call him something else now.
Yeah.
Mike says, also, why is your secret robot the buffest guy around? That's good. Well, because the robot's got to be a little bulky. Mike says that his favorite King project is Creepshow. Also, Creepshow's great. Let's move down a little bit. Wizard of Oz, no, that's not a horror movie. E.T. is scary, right? E.T. is scary.
You know, if I found ET, me and my buds would kill him with hammers.
Okay, here's the next movie that is unambiguously a horror movie is Carrie. Also Stephen
Oh
King.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Carrie's a great movie.
yeah, it
It's
is a
it's
great movie.
horrifying, and I think it's horrifying in a completely different way for women, or not a
Yeah,
completely different way, but a similar, like a very different way. Not completely, but very.
like Rosemary's Baby, I think it speaks, to certainly universal fears and universal situations, but I think it likely, and we don't have a female style person on the show to get their perspective. So let's be careful to not speak for women in general too much. But I think Carrie and Rosemary's Baby are the same in that they speak to experiences that women have a lot more intensely, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on
They're
here,
remaking Carrie right now, and the woman who's like favored to get the role, as I've heard, is a transgender woman, and I think that's
interesting.
going to put a really interesting spin on Carrie if they do that. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
I
that would
like that
be
idea a lot.
really, it would work with the concept really well. So I'm
It would.
interested to see what they do with that if
I
that happens.
generally don't approve of remakes of movies that are already good, but that sounds interesting. I'd pay to see that. Um, on AFI's list is the original, the 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I'm not saying isn't good, but the 1970s one's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we talked a lot about the old Universal movies. Going down to 19 to number 56 is the original Frankenstein. I those movies are paced differently, and I think few people would see those 1930s and 1940s Universal movies as being scary necessarily, but they're eerie and they have a sense of style that we don't see in movies these days. And I really recommend, if people have the ability to watch those movies, that you take some time out of your day and check out all of those. The original Dracula with Bela Lugosi, the original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. The on my list here is the Mummy, also with Boris Karloff. It's worth it to go see those, because they scary isn't the right word, but they're evocative of something, something close to being scared, and they're just a good time, and I can't recommend enough. And there's just a way of making films. It's a style of acting. It's a style of editing and the music and everything that just isn't done today. One of my favorite pieces of old time horror trivia is both the Mummy and with Boris Karloff, and Dracula with Bela Lugosi. The music they play over the opening credits to both of those movies is just Swan Lake. It's just Swan Lake. I don't know why they did that. I guess it was cheap or free or something. Um, do you think so? We're going down the list a little bit, and we should take a pause for a minute because we have a few more questions to read. But I'm having a good time doing this. Do
Sure,
you
yeah.
think that Planet of the Apes, is there a world where that's a scary movie for people?
Well, again, like if you're living in the King Kong world of ape panics, then
Yes,
perhaps
but it was the second ape panic of
the second ape panic, yeah,
1968.
big ape scare. All right, before we get a question, I just need to get some tea. I'll be right back.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'll wait for you. I'm going to talk about Planet of the Apes a little bit while you're out.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I wonder if there was a person that wasn't a little child that saw that movie in the movie theater and was scared. And I wonder if that has something to do, like, if you're cruel to animals and don't have any qualms about cruelty to animals, and then you see a movie where there's what you perceive to be animals being cruel to people, I bet that would be really upsetting. Maybe. I don't know. Let's find one more movie. Oh, so right after that, number 60 is The Sixth Sense. I think, like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies, that movie is really scary the first time you watch it, and then it kind of falls apart really quickly after that. What do you think? Were you scared the first time you saw The Sixth Sense, Oldman?
No,
I
no,
thought
I
that
wouldn't
movie was
say
a
I was
little
scared.
scary. I thought I was a little scary the first time I saw it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember 1999's all that clearly. I know I got my Yahoo email in 1998,
Wow,
but
you still got that email?
I do actually. It's my personal email. Sonic the Hedgehog 666.
Um,
Uh, no. Anyway, yeah, The Sixth Sense. I don't think I was ever scared of it. It seemed more like a mystery because it has like a twist. It didn't really seem as much
yeah,
like
but
a
know that it had.
supernatural, sure, but
Did you know
scary.
that it had a twist when you were watching it?
I think maybe I had it spoiled. I don't know. It's hard to remember, like I said.
Okay. I definitely think that if you just read the screenplay to that movie and someone asked you what genre it would be, you'd say that it was a horror movie.
Hmm.
I think. Anyways, here's another question we have. My 13 Hold on. Okay, here we go. My 13-year-old niece, Lacey, suffers from several learning disabilities and was drowning in the public school system. My brother approached our parents and me for help, paying to put Lacey in a private school with smaller classes and more individualized learning. It is expensive as all hell, but Lacey has been thriving there these last 3 years. The problem is that our parents are retiring and can't afford to keep paying their share, while my husband and I are looking to buy a vacation home near his family. They live overseas. This will be Lacey's last year. Only my brother refuses to tell Lacey anything. Instead, he is rallying against my husband and me for being selfish and putting a house over the well being of Lacey. I have offered to pay for private tutoring until Lacey graduates, but Lacey is my niece, not my daughter. We have been extremely generous until now, but we didn't accept it would be forever. My brother and husband got into it about the tuition, and my husband made several unkind remarks about my brother's ability as a father. My brother isn't speaking to either of us now. Honestly, I'm worried about Lacey, but more tired with the lack of maturity of her father. He refuses to see reason and keeps burying his head in the sand on this subject. What do we do here?
Well, you have a very limited set of options as somebody who's not the parent, for one.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I would say uh, no legitimately generous person in the history of the world has ever said we have been extremely generous. Saying
Mm-hmm.
that you're being generous is not a generous thing to do. You can be, there's giving and then there's generosity. Those are two different things. And while certainly you've given this person writing the letter has given their brother lots and lots of money, they are not generous because they've been keeping track of it, and now without a lot of warning or any kind of communication, they've decided to stop that giving. Um, well, I agree. You have obligations. Your obligations to your own child are different than your obligations to your nieces and nephews. But they've already set an expectation that they would be contributing for this. I would want to know when letter writer agreed to pay for school. Was there a talk about how long it would be for? I guess would be my first thing. Did you agree to a time period, or did you just say yes and assume that they understood that it could end at any time for any reason? Is my main question. I understand why the dad isn't communicating this to Lacey because I'm sure that the news that she'd have to go back to public school is going to be very upsetting and stressful for this kid. So I understand his hesitation to tell her. He's got to tell her sooner or later. But maybe he's holding out that there's something that can happen that'll her to keep going to a school where she's thriving instead of having to go back to a
Mm-hmm.
place where she wasn't. I think it's incredibly um, unkind what this person's doing. The fact that the letter writer's partner said something unbelievably shitty and cruel to this kid's dad, and the fact that they've just unilaterally made a decision. It kind of seems out of nowhere that they're just not going to help anymore. Is The red flag for me is when they say we've been extremely generous, because generosity means you don't say that. That's not what generosity is. Is my take. I'm inclined to not take letter writer's side in this for those two reasons. They've been unnecessarily cruel, and they seem to have never really wanted to do this to begin with, and now they're being extra unkind about it.
Yeah, and also it seems like they're heaping all of the blame on these parents for making their child not be able to go to that school anymore.
Yeah.
when they also played a role.
Yeah. Um, you, I really need to know what that initial conversation was like, and if they agreed to an end date for this.
Mhm.
And if they didn't, then um, they at least need to give them a couple years to start to make this transition instead of just saying this is your last year. The letter says this is Lacey's last year. Like they've decided that that's the end of it. And
Mhm.
I also think that that's really unkind. And uh, saying that I'm not going to support your kid's education anymore, even though I never told you that I wasn't going to do this forever because I want to buy a vacation home. That's just not a good look at all. That's it's not very flattering to you, letter writer, to say that. Yeah, I don't like any part of this. I'll certainly legally your obligation to your niece is not much, but your moral obligation, especially when you're already committed to do it, seems like that's a little bit of a different story to me.
Absolutely.
Um, you want to read another one? I got one here that's
Yeah, let's do it.
of a sexual nature, if everyone's okay with that. Just as a little bit of a content warning here on the advice stream, we acknowledge the existence of sex. If you are disturbed by the acknowledgement of the existence of sex, then this might be a good time to tune out and see a therapist. Okay, here's another one, and this one is once again of a sexual nature. Here we go. Uh, I have this friend I casually have sexual encounters with. She'll text me out of the blue when she wants to so I can come over and have sex. Last time I went over, she got all fixed up and put on a big show. I ended up giving her oral. When she climaxed, it was great. But then when it was my turn to get off, this is parentheses penetration and parentheses. She didn't want to. This has become a pattern with every encounter, and they're not as frequent as I'd like them to be. Last time this happened, she had told me that we could meet up the next night to finish. The next day, she texted me to cancel using the excuse that she had family in town. I casually texted her a week later and received no response until weeks later. I want to know if I should just move on or keep being persistent in trying to get her to meet casually more often. We're not interested in being in a relationship together. Should I be persistent or should I wait patiently because I don't want to seem desperate? I feel like she just strings me along when she feels like it. I just want to have sex with her more often versus once every 2 to 3 months, but I don't want to drive her away. I have tried to tell her this via text, but she's always vague and won't answer.
Oh boy. I'd like to see those text messages.
I know. I mean, a couple of things to say to this. First off, he does the classic two old ladies in the restaurant. One of them says, "The food in this restaurant's really terrible," and the other one says, "Yeah, and the portions are so small." Like, you don't like the sex, but you wish you were doing it more frequently. To me, is the takeaway from this. Um, I got other thoughts. You go ahead first, Oldman. What are your, you're a single person. What's your hot
Well,
on this one?
directly addressing the question, he needs to move on. Stop texting her. Uh, he shouldn't have been complaining in the beginning, really. Like, that's just not how that works
Yeah,
in this real world.
the part where he says, and I'm sorry that we're laughing at this person, but
Not.
I hope if the person that wrote this is listening, that they, in my reading, I hope you realized how much of, in all respect, a silly situation you found yourself in. Everybody that's sexually active find themselves in silly situations from time to time because sex makes us all a little silly. Sex is silly in and of itself, and it makes us all sometimes do weird, bizarre things. There's a line here where they say the letter writer says that they're worried about being more persistent because they don't want to push them away. They're already away. dude. You're seeing them once every couple of months. They they meet up because they want to get off, and then they're done with you. That's not even friends with benefits. That's not even like an occasional hookup. That's just someone that's using you to get off and then wants you to go away. You can you could absolutely do better than this. I would even say being on your own would probably be better for you mentally than this type of situation. This person doesn't want to be with you, even in the very vague parameters that you have. And I guarantee you that with a little bit of effort, you could find someone that wants to sleep with you a little semi regularly, because that's not even what's happening here. You shouldn't be worried about pushing them away because they are already away. Uh, yeah, I'd imagine that this person you're talking about, you are very attracted to. I'd imagine, because that would be the only explanation why anyone would put up with something like this. Would be my guess. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
I
sorry that
mean,
we.
on the positive side, I would say have a little self-respect.
Yeah.
And try to put yourself like imagine this happening to somebody that you care about. And that's always a good exercise in any situation.
Yeah. Yes. Best of luck. Get on the apps. Uh, with other people's full permission and consent. Send a picture of your dick to some people, and then you'll be fine. But what you got going on here isn't sustainable, and it doesn't seem enjoyable for you, or for anyone except for her sometimes. Anyways, I like that question a lot. I feel like, I don't know, the idea that sexual desire can make people be silly sometimes. Um,
Oh yeah.
Back to the list. Do you think so? We got a few others. So we did The Sixth Sense. I saw the Cape Fear remake, and that movie was definitely intense. I don't know if I'd call it a horror movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen What Happened to Baby Jane?
No, what's that about?
It's about like a woman that was like a child star, and her like friend or sister or something. I can't remember the details, but now they're all old and has-beens, and everyone's forgotten who they are. And the person that was a star is just horrible and manipulative and desperately trying to hold on to some kind of fame. And
Mhm.
it's I don't know if I'd call it a horror movie, but it's
Hmm.
a disturbing thriller for sure. And then number 64 on the list is Touch of Evil, which is, besides Citizen Kane, the only Orson Welles movie that I've ever seen, which is really good. Charlton Heston plays a Mexican person in it, but it's like a thriller. It's like a crime movie. Definitely not a horror movie though. Oh man, what about The Matrix? Do you think there's a world where The Matrix could be a horror movie? Do you think we could
Yeah,
pursue that as a
absolutely.
horror movie? Yeah, I
I
kind
can
of
see
think
that.
so too. Yeah,
Body horror for sure.
yeah, and just the fear of being like manipulated your entire life and not knowing it.
Yeah,
Uh,
like the ultimate gaslighting.
yeah. Number 60 is the original Halloween, also one of my favorites. I would say that the original Halloween is also very Hitchcockian. I think
Mhm.
it is much, for like the invention of the slasher movie. It's more atmospheric than you'd expect it to be. Well, certainly you see people getting murdered in it. It's actually not very bloody.
Mhm.
Most of the time you see the murdered person after they've been killed. You see a few, you don't usually see like the murder actually happening in the movie. So it's a lot more, I don't know, it's a lot more artistically done. It's also, for the longest time, I don't think it still is, but for the longest time it was the most profitable independent movie ever made because it was made so cheaply and it did so well
Mhm.
in the movie theater. My favorite story, there's a really good podcast about the making of Halloween. My favorite story about Halloween is they shot it in California, but it was supposed to take place in a Chicago suburb, on
Mm-hmm.
Halloween. So they had someone bring in giant garbage bags full of dead leaves that they sprinkled around the streets and the yards of the houses and stuff, so it looked like it was fall time. And then at the end of a shoot, they'd have to rake them all up and use them again later because they only had a few big garbage bags full of leaves. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would have been easier just to go to Chicago. Let's see what else. What else is in here? Number 84 is Poltergeist, 1982.
That's scary.
Yeah,
That's a real horror movie.
that's a real horror movie.
That would be the
Dracula,
most archetypal one
31.
so far for me. Dracula, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. The Thing from Another World, 1951, which 1982's The Thing is a vague remake of that. Uh,
I saw 1982, but I've never seen the original.
I did when I was a kid. I haven't seen it before. Number 93, Night of the Living Dead, 1960. It's crazy that that movie came out the same year that Rosemary's Baby came out.
Hmm.
Um, for some reason, Night of the Living Dead, even though it's in black and white, feels like a more modern movie than Rosemary's Baby does to me. Also, interesting bit of trivia about Night of the Living Dead. Because of some registration or clerical error or something, that movie never got copyright protected. It's in the public domain. It has always been in the public domain.
Hmm.
So, like, if you go to Amazon and like look for Night of the Living Dead on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, you're gonna find like 100 companies making it because anyone you could download a copy of it from Pirate Bay or whatever, copy it onto DVDs a bunch of times and sell it out of the trunk of your car, and it would be totally legal to do that.
Hmm. That doesn't sound right based on what I know about copyright, but it could be some very unique edge case
I think
because
if
copyright is automatic.
I think that in 1968, the way that you got a movie copyright protected is when you showed it in a theater for the first time, there needed to be a statement, like a screen of text at the beginning that says this movie is copyright protected and this is the organization that owns it. And they changed the
Hmm.
laws. You don't have to do that anymore. But back in 1968, you had to. And that bit of text was never displayed at the beginning of the movie, is my understanding.
Hmm.
Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I'd imagine you know more about that than I do. But
I
that
don't know about this case, but it's interesting.
it's whatever loophole or problem, whatever instance caused the movie to be public domain has been patched. It can't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else in this list?
Full Metal Jacket is pretty scary.
I kind of agree with that too, especially when you consider that people were drafted. You could just be minding your own business and suddenly have to go fight in a horrible, pointless war in the jungle on the other side of the planet for no reason. That's
I mean, like
very,
the basic training part is definitely a horror part of
yeah,
that movie.
yeah. That movie's got one of my favorite lines in a movie of all time. He says, "The dead only know one thing: it was better to have been alive."
Hmm.
I like that one. All right. Well, that was fun. Thanks, AFI.
Yeah.
I've never seen the Omen that's on there. I never saw the 1925, so that would have been the silent movie version of Phantom of the Opera. I never saw that, but would like to someday. I don't watch a lot of silent movies, but I feel like I'd like to learn more about that particular type of cinema. Yeah.
I'm trying to look up the name of that horror movie I saw with Kotu a while back.
Yeah. Tell me all about it.
Let's see. Well, no, I'm still looking, so
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'm gonna find it at all.
Well, let me know if you do. One of the things that I always think is a fun conversation when you're talking about horror movies is a movie you find scary that nobody else does, or at least no one else finds as scary. Um, you know, I think lots of people find this movie scary, but I know like a lot of my horror movie aficionado people don't. But the Ring, the American version of the Ring, I think is a very scary movie, and I know a lot of hardcore horror movie people that say that it's not. And that movie I thought was terrifying, and it stuck with me and kind of rattled me for a long time after I saw it. Um, interesting, interesting story about that I just remembered is, so if
Hmm.
you've seen The Ring, like the premise is there's like this haunted videotape, and if you watch the videotape, then a couple days later, this little girl crawls out of your TV set and murders you in some vague and horrifying way. But in the American movie, the video that's on the videotape, because when you're watching the movie, you see it, was hardly changed. It was an art project, like an art school, like an art student film project that they bought up, the production bought up, and changed only a little tiny bit. But that was the movie that people are seeing when they put on the haunted videotape that kills them.
Hmm.
And I had seen that movie, the art film. I saw it when I was in college in a visual arts class I took, and forgot about it because I thought it was weird, but wasn't particularly memorable at the time. And so just didn't think about it literally at all after the one day in class that I saw it. And then I go see The Ring in the movie theater, and they show the video on the tape, and I know that I had seen it, and I couldn't remember
Hmm.
where I had seen that video before. And it was
That's
very
crazy.
jarring and disturbing. Not that I thought that a little girl was going to crawl out of my CRT and murder me or whatever, but it was just such a weird and bizarre film. The art film that's inside the movie, it's such a weird, bizarre thing to begin with, but then to have this strong sense of deja vu while I was
Hmm.
watching it and not being able to place why I knew this movie. And then I think I like years went by, and I wouldn't think about it a lot. Like, it wasn't that upset, but every once in a while I would just remember, like, why did I have such a weird reaction to that? And then a friend of mine from college just mentioned offhand, hey, we remember we saw that movie that they put in The Ring when we were in Mr. Whatever's class. And I was like, oh, all right, that's why. I'm way less
That's the funny
disturbed. I'm
realization.
way less disturbed by the whole thing now. Did you find the movie, Oldman?
Nope.
Okay. Well, on
I
that
thought I bought
note,
the tickets, but apparently he did, and I can't find a record, so it's fine. Couldn't Google it either. I didn't prepare. I was late.
that's totally fine. I didn't prepare either. That's why we've just been, this is the premise of the advice room. We're just hanging out. There's no expectations here. People write in questions. We do our best to provide them with some guidance or some help if we can. And that's the show. Sometimes we have specific things to talk about. Sometimes we just kind of shoot the shit, which is what we've been doing. And I think that is fine and wonderful. I think we're going to wrap it up. It's about 12 to 11, and I am a sleepy Gary. So I'll go ahead and say that this has been the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. I was joined today, as I have been so often over the last several weeks, by Oldmin. We've been live on Twitch. We've been live on Facebook. We've been live on YouTube. Oh, yeah. And I think starting next week, and if you'd like to join me for this, Oldman, I would love you to. I think I'm going to go back to streaming a video game. I think I'm going to stream, speaking of scary stuff, I'm going to stream the original Silent Hill for the PlayStation 1, which I have on a PlayStation that I think I can connect to my computer.
Nice.
And if you wanted to hang out, Oldman, we can't really play that together because it's a single player game, but you can hang out with me and keep me company while I play this game
Yeah,
that
sure. I'll watch
is
you play.
so scary. Yeah. And we can talk about stuff while I'm playing it. I don't really know
Hmm.
anything about that game, never played it before, but I believe I have a process. Well, I'll do some experimentation between now and next week to set up a PlayStation 1 so I can play it as a live stream. I think that'll be fun. And we'll see how it goes. If one day feels good, then we'll keep doing it. If not, we'll find something else to do.
Yeah,
As
sounds great. Go back to the video games.
Yeah, let's try it out and see how it goes. As a reminder, if you would like to seek advice from me, your friend Jeremy International, with the help of Oldmin and also our audience at home sometimes, then head on over to JeremyInternational.com. There's a contact form there. We'll read your questions out anonymously and we'll discuss. I hope I was helpful to the folks that wrote in today, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Oldman.
Of course. Thanks, Jeremy.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.